A word of warning, this podcast explores graphic and disturbing stories and includes some strong language. It therefore may not be suitable for our young listeners or other folks who may find it disturbing. Hello and welcome to True Crime News, the podcast covering high-profile and under-the-radar cases from across the country every week. I'm your host, Ana Garcia. Our case this week, the killer's neck tattoo says blessed, but the judge says that he has the face of pure evil. As motives go, this one we don't often hear of. Prosecutors say it was a revenge killing for getting expelled from high school. I can't help but wonder if there was something more, since the convicted killer here wasn't exactly a good student. And you're going to want to stick around for Will's comment section today because we have another case of a domesticated wild animal, a squirrel, rescued and loved for 7 years, suddenly taken away by the authorities in upstate New York. We are recording this on Friday, November 1st of 2024. Our guest today is Bolaños, a former homicide detective with more than 30 years of law enforcement experience and the founder of Get Bit Investigations, and of course, a dear friend of the show and a dear friend of mine and of my family. Hi, Louis. How are you?
Hi, Anna. Good morning. I'm doing well. Hopefully you're doing well also and had a great, safe Halloween.
Yes. Yes. And we have lots to celebrate today. I notice your Dodger hat back there. Whoop, whoop. Yeah.
Quietly celebrating.
A little quiet celebration for the World Series champ. You know, this is the first time I've actually watched an entire World Series in my life. The whole thing.
Oh, that's interesting.
I know. Wow. I mean, because that's a lot.
It's a commitment for sure. Everything else shuts down. If you're going to do this, everything else has to shut down during that time frame.
And I committed, and it was absolutely worth it. So congratulations to everyone. And also, congratulations also to our Yankee fans. They played hard too. Okay. Anyway, back to business today. This case is really interesting. It has gotten some attention, but I think it's always very important that we look at cases that are unusual and also cases where I am incensed that the victim, the person who's been murdered here, that their character gets attacked. Because how does that in any way explain what's happened? I mean, that is not okay to further victimize the victim. It really bothers me, and it bothered me in this case because she was young. She was 16 years old, and I'm sorry, you don't have your head on straight at 16.
She certainly did. She had her challenges, but going after her character in these type of situations, going after the victim, we see that a lot, Anna, but I think it's more common than we think, where defense attorneys will try to put as much negative light on the victim as possible in the hopes of somehow justifying the actions of the actual suspect, the murderer, the monster, the clown. And that's what they were trying to do here. I'm positive of that, but it just comes across disgusting. And very seldom we see the court jump in and say none of that. Which is unfortunate because really like you said, what does it have to do with the case itself? If they're just reaching for some type of defense, and it didn't work.
No, it did not work in this case. And the other reason this case is very unique is that, you have a really long history of working in Riverside County, California, where this is out of. You worked at the sheriff's department and you were an investigator for the district attorney's office.
Yes. Yeah. I spent a lot of time there working on this homicide team, the same one that investigated this case here. And we were early days, just the onset of that team developing. And it was quite a good team, very good. But I think they're even better now. And with all the technology, and they've really tuned up the training and kept the folks that have the expertise in these type of investigations. So positive, very positive.
And this is a case that is also a difficult one to have tried because still the victim's body has not been found here. The victim is 16-year-old Aranda Briones, and the convicted killer here is Owen Skyler Shover, who is now 23, and he has been sentenced to life without parole for her murder. His brother was also implicated in this case, and we'll get to that. But it is hard to try a case without a body, and it is even harder for the victim's family. And we don't have that resolution yet. We know she's somewhere.
Yeah. Well, only two people know where she's at, and that's the two brothers. And hopefully there could be a twist there. Something could happen to make them become motivated to tell the family where she's at.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. And I was, when I was looking at this case and I was looking at the photos again, I do want to thank the press enterprise because they did an extraordinary job of not only covering the case, but covering the trial. And we don't have enough smaller local, either newspapers or websites around the country to be able to do this. But they are the ones who truly cover cases like this and what's going on in a community. So many applause to them for always doing the hard work when others are not watching. So a lot of this reporting is because they were in the courtroom in real time, and we're very appreciative of that. So I wanted to thank them. But so as I looked at the picture from trial, I zoomed in, and I hope Will puts it up for everyone. I zoomed in on Owen's neck. I'm like, am I reading this correctly? Does that tattoo say blessed? Because I thought I must be wrong. And I zoomed in and I'm like, yeah, blessed. Wow. Yeah. Who are you, buddy?
Unless he got that tattooed on him when he was a year old, maybe early on. Or he doesn't know what it means. But either way, he's trying to paint himself in a positive light. It's just disgusting, right? It's just, you see it sticks out. You wonder.
Yeah. It's just those two, that picture just doesn't focus for me. Okay. So as we said, Owen Skyler Shover is now 23. And the reason for killing Aranda here, we don't hear this one very often. We hear of things with teens, but he believed that Aranda was responsible for his expulsion from school. This kid was never a good student. So I am really trying to figure out how he held on to this grudge for as long as prosecutors say that he did. Really? This is what messed up your life, buddy?
Right. And I think it's not just the fact that he's upset that she gave him up on a previous crime that he was involved in, but it's the fact that she snitched, right? Doesn't matter what the crime was. The crime to him was the snitching, the fact that he gave her up and the circumstances that she gave him up, and the circumstances in that situation are just amazing. This is just a coward. He's been a coward from day one to put her in a situation where she had to make that decision or put her life up on a worse trail that it was already on. She's trying to fight through that. But he put her in a tough spot.
And the incident, honestly, when you think about it, big picture, the incident, we'll get into more details, but the broad stroke of it is they'd all cut school. Truant officer came looking for him. Owen had a gun, tosses the gun to Aranda, and she's like, I don't want this. What am I supposed to do with this? She throws it in the ditch. Eventually, the truant officer catches as many as they can. And when she's questioned about, because you could see the gun being tossed, whose gun is it? What is this? It's not my gun. It's his. So really, he has the gun, but because he tosses it to her and she doesn't cover for him, this is the retribution. You will ultimately kill her?
Yeah, it has to be something else. I agree, which we said at the top of this. That can't be enough over a 2-year period to get so infuriated again over that. But the warrant officer, the truant officer, saw her throw the gun. So he would have recovered it anyways. It probably had prints on it, his DNA. I mean, they would have got to him anyways. It was his stupidity. It's just horrible. It's just a horrible thing that this monster did to this kid.
Now, we mentioned Owen's brother. That would be Gary Anthony Shover, who is 26. And he pleaded guilty to his role in helping to dispose of Aranda's body. And he was sentenced to 1 year behind bars. And I believe you are particularly angry about that.
Oh, absolutely. And Anna, I'm not even sure he had to do time. He got 12 months probation, not time. So either one is inappropriate. How does that happen? This brother, this man, knows exactly where she's at, where her body's at. And he somehow got the sweetest deal ever. I would like to hear the DA himself, Mike Hestrin, address that. And there may be a justifiable reason we just don't know about yet, but it's still a question that everybody knows about this case in this situation is asking, right? How did he get that sweet deal? Where's the punishment? So this guy is probably already close, if he's not already out, to serving his time. If he did whatever time, his probation. So where's the punishment in this? He knows where the body's at. And what's to keep him from going back and moving it again or doing more to hide the crime?
Just tell us where she is so the family can give her a proper burial. Really? Come on now. If all you're getting is a year, that's a pretty sweet deal. Do something that's right.
Right. And I started to tell you earlier, Anna, we see this happening more and more and more, where accomplices, after the fact, do some major movement in covering up the crime or participating in it after the incident itself, the homicide, and they get these sweet deals because they want to put all their time and effort, the prosecutor's office, into going after the main character, the main person who actually physically committed the crime. And I think they should be both. I don't think if he's going to, unless there's a good reason, a 12-month probation period is worth giving him. No, let's take him to jury trial and throw the dice that he gets some serious time. I think the family would be okay with that. What's 12 months probation? Give up where the body is, and then we'll talk about it.
Yes, agreed. And especially since during trial, it came out that there were these really incriminating text messages between Owen and his brother, Gary, who got off, easy. One of the text messages read, "Be ready with shovels and lighter fluid." Really? What's going on there? Now, Owen and Aranda were former friends and classmates at Moreno Valley High School. I'm sure you know it well.
Yes, exactly where it is and all about that school. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
So Aranda had a tough life. She was adopted by her grandparents when she was just 3 years old. Maybe didn't have as many boundaries as would have been beneficial to her, but everyone has their own path. Defense attorneys attacked her character, and they used her challenges and her demons to further victimize her, which is the part of this case that really upsets me. And I wish that the prosecutor and that the judge had stepped in. Just because you're a young person with a troubled life does not mean that anybody gets to take your life. Your life is of value. It is not for us to judge your life.
Right. And her family will tell you that she was on the path of trying to correct herself. She was actually picking out of college and had that goal of something new. So she was developing into the right path. And who knows what could have been? We will never know.
No, we won't, because she was never given an opportunity to live her life fully. According to Owen's defense, this led to some of her wild years, and they alleged in court that she was using cocaine and allegedly robbing drug dealers, and that in 2016, she suffered a huge emotional setback. That's when her grandmother passed away, the woman who raised her as a mother, and it was really hard. And her brother testified that she had struggles, but she had been reunited with her dad. She was on the path. She had a job, and she was thinking about college. And when this whole expulsion thing happened, she was able to go to another school and finish. And so did Owen. So I don't know what their problem, what Owen's problem is here. Nothing stopped him from living his life. No. So Aranda's life was tragically taken before she could realize any of these ambitions. On January 13th of 2019, she disappeared and was never seen again. The only trace of her was blood in Owen's trunk. Owen and Aranda's friendship ended after an incident that resulted in both of them getting expelled from Moreno Valley High School. So let's talk a little bit more about that incident we described at the top. It was November 7th of 2017, so about 2 years earlier. Aranda ditches class with her friends, including Owen, and then she goes to a local park, and then a truant officer spots them, and I guess Owen didn't want to be caught with a gun. Hello, what are you doing with a gun, Owen? Yes, he's a minor, and Owen tosses the gun to Aranda. She doesn't know what the heck to do with this thing, tosses it. They all get caught. They're questioned. And then the issue goes up to the school board. I found that interesting that if you're going to be expelled from school, it goes up to the school board. I figured that was like a local school thing.
Yeah, I found that interesting also, but when you're putting the crime out there to the public through the school board, I don't like that. I think the criminal investigation comes first because it's a little too transparent unless it's a closed hearing and they compartmentalize it somehow. And I'm still wondering how initially Owen found out that she's the one that gave up that information.
Well, I think everybody saw everything. Like he tosses the gun, then she tosses it, someone sees it, and I guess he was.
That's my point. If everybody saw it, there was no reason for law enforcement to pin it on her. And that happens all the time in these investigations where you have someone who wants to be a witness. And it's one of the biggest, most challenging things that in my career, when a witness who has the only piece of information to make the link and their family, so many times it's a juvenile and their family, they come to you with a heartfelt question is, am I going to be safe if I give you this information? And that's always a tough one to answer. But my classic one is that, it very rare is there retaliation. However, I kind of sit here and tell you there won't be. It's the decision you didn't make with your family. And it's tough. I mean, if this happened to you, what would you want to happen? But there are things you can do in the investigation to kind of wall off where the information came from and make the other side just jump through hoops and hoops and hoops and hoops. There's been some cases where I'll tell folks that if it gets to the point after all these hoops that we can't make them plead out and you have to testify, we will throw that out. I will never give you up as my informant, and we'll lose the case. It's not worth this if we're putting your life at risk. And we've done that. And, that's just one of the many ways to wall those things off and protect the witness. But it's a dance. It's an absolute justice dance.
Yeah. So they were both forced to leave school. They went their separate ways. Aranda eventually enrolled in a nearby continuation school. Meanwhile, Owen, this part I don't understand, was forced to move out of his mother's house in Moreno Valley and then moved into his father's home in Hesperia. And then he also enrolled in a continuation school. So something happened there.
Yeah, maybe mom had enough of his shenanigans and said, out of here, go live with your dad. Right.
Yeah, very possible.
Brother,
very possible.
Who knows? But it's not a poor Owen moment.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
There's no poor Owen here. Give me a break. Yeah, blessed. He doesn't realize how blessed his life has been. He is still alive. He really doesn't get it. He doesn't get it at all. So Aranda moved on with her life. But apparently, again, this is all through prosecutors, Owen was motivated by revenge. Makes me think there has to be something more here. Again, this is not a guy who was an A student and was risking his college scholarship with this incident. That's not this kid's life. So the Press Enterprise reports that Owen exchanged a number of messages on Facebook, Snapchat, and other apps from November of 2018 to January of 2019, trying to get another gun.
How about that? And look, and as you go through this timeline here, what stuck out to me and hopefully everybody else is if this clown Owen wanted to get caught, he would do the things that he did. Right. Did he think he was the sharpest knife in the drawer? I hope not, because he certainly wasn't. But he did everything you needed to do to get caught from so many different directions. And frankly, turned this into a very powerful circumstantial case.
Yes, circumstantial, because there was no body. Yes. No body. And we still don't even know how she was killed.
Yeah.
Another thing that maybe the brother could shed some light on. But no, not cooperating here. So sometime in January of 2019, Owen finally gets his hands on a gun. And not long after that, who does he reach out to? His old friend Aranda, who he has not been in contact with. Now, what's interesting is, okay, so the day before her disappearance is when she receives a text from Owen. And this is the oddest thing. So, according to authorities, Aranda was offered this kind of a deal. It's so odd. He said he was going to be, Owen said he was going to be making some drug deliveries and offered her the opportunity to act as the driver while he robbed while he robbed drug dealers. What is wrong with this man?
He had her under his spell, whatever it is. The family will tell you that they had no physical relationship. They were not boyfriend and girlfriend. Maybe that, who knows, but she was absolutely infatuated with him. She loved being under his wings. And he knew that. He knew how to play her.
Yeah. So she says yes. And she apparently was so excited to be with him again that she's posting on social media photos with him. Reconnected with her homie.
It's interesting because he contacted her under the guise that he was going to have her help him act as a driver to do some more robbing of the bad, Robin Hood robbing of the drug dealers, possibly. But in the same breath, that's the same line that his defense attorney used against her. He's the one that put that in her head. He's the one who turned her into someone who helps him rob others. So it's kind of, he gets the best of both worlds there. What's up with that?
Oh, did you read his tattoo?
Yes.
Please. Yeah. So she's excited to reconnect with Owen, agrees to meet him at Bayside Park at 5 p.m. on January 13th, 2019. She willingly entered his Nissan because two of her friends were witnesses to the drop-off. So we know who she was last seen with. This will be very important in this circumstantial case. So again, she was so happy, back with her homie. She posts some pictures on social media. Now, according to data collected after Aranda's death, Owen and Aranda drove around Box Springs Mountain for approximately 20 minutes just before 6 p.m. His phone pinged, driving to then a San Bernardino County trailer park. And then while driving to the trailer park, Owen messages his brother Gary saying, quote, "Be ready for tonight. Get shovels and lighter fluid ready." And then the two brothers were tracked returning to the mountains. So he knew to turn off his phone.
Well, he knew to turn, again, an anomaly, right? That's something that never really happens unless they're trying to hide their route. But, Box Springs Canyon Road is a shortcut. And really, it's something that really is for locals. You have to know that area. And you take it from Moreno Valley toward Hesperia, San Bernardino area where they were heading. So it's at that time of day, 5 p.m.-ish, high traffic in that 91 freeway, which is the busiest freeway in the world. So he took that, maybe not just for the shortcut. I'm not convinced that he buried her up there or she's up there 100% because during that time, there's a lot of traffic back there from all the locals taking shortcuts out there. So I just think it's interesting that he went to get the brother, asked the brother for lighter fluid. So possibly leads to the mindset that they're going to bury her and burn her. Mm-hmm. And the lighter fluid is, if you burn the body correctly, it'll help prevent animal activity from digging her up. I just don't know how much thought, with as dumb as they were in hiding their tracks with everything else, how did he nail this part? How are we not able to find her? And that's something that it's a hard thing to swallow because they haven't. And they've been trying, using every tool they can.
Yeah. It's interesting. So between 8:30 and 10:15 p.m., Owen turned his phone off and then reconnected once he returned to his father's home. Friends and family, of course, were immediately concerned when Aranda disappeared. Let's not forget the history that the family would know went down between these two. Her case was originally investigated as a missing persons case, and then it became a homicide investigation. And I don't know where the turn was here on the homicide investigation. I really don't.
Yeah, but let's talk about that because to me, that really stuck out because right away, when you're interviewing her family members and the people that last saw her, it's not a missing person. She reconnected with this guy who, who she told the truth about, right? And cost him, an expulsion.
So between the witnesses that saw her getting into the car with him and then the digital evidence, the phone, the texting, get the shovels ready, come on now. The cops went straight to the Shover brothers, A search warrant for Owen's car detected blood in the trunk, and then there was a significant amount of blood that had pooled and was resting beneath the carpeting. And ultimately, the DNA was a match for Aranda. There is zero explanation as to why there would be that much of her blood in a trunk unless they had killed her.
Yeah. It's very possible she was killed in that trunk because of that pooling.
Oh, really?
And they didn't find blood anywhere else. So if she was killed in the front seat of that car, there would have been something. But that she was in the trunk, there was pooling, and that took a significant amount of time for that blood to pool there.
They also found in the brothers' backyard blankets and clothing that had been dug into holes. The evidence also clearly pointed to the murder of Aranda. Now, Owen told authorities that he had returned Aranda to the park where she was picked up by another vehicle. But of course, surveillance footage would prove that that was a lie.
Yeah. Moreno Valley has a lot of city cameras everywhere. So they were able to stitch those cameras with private cameras and get a pretty good idea that direction that he was absolutely lying. Once again, read the tattoo there. In February of 2019, Owen and Gary were both arrested and charged with murder and special circumstances of lying in wait. At the time, Owen was 18. Gary was 21. In 2022, a judge dismissed the charges of first-degree murder against Gary at a preliminary hearing, and Gary was then charged with one count of accessory after the fact. Fascinating, right? How does it go from murder one to, I don't know anything. Yeah, I don't know how they just didn't have enough on him possibly, and only on the brother to get murder one. But it's very rare that you will see a case thrown out at prelim because the threshold is so low, right? It's not like a jury trial where you need 12 out of 12, right? You just need the preponderance of evidence, 51%, just that little tilt in your favor that it may have happened this way. And he couldn't even reach that. So the prosecutor,
Very interesting. Of course, there have been so many community volunteers and Aranda's family trying to find her body over the years. They have been unsuccessful, and I do believe that the Shover brothers here can help. They really can help with this part of it. I find it interesting that the prosecutor, the DA, who's the elected official here in California for the prosecutor's office, tried this case himself. That's unusual.
Oh, that's an understatement, Anna. That's a major anomaly. In 40 years in Riverside County, I've never seen it or heard of that, the actual DA doing the prosecution themselves. And the reasoning Mike Hestron gave for taking on this case himself, being the main prosecutor, is because of the outcry from the community in Moreno Valley. And so he wanted to take this on personally himself. He's very, very good at it, being a prosecutor. He's very good reputation and success rate. But there are also many, many other very excellent prosecutors in that unit. So,
yeah, there are. They are. It's a very unusual move. I guess he showed his commitment to this case, the commitment to the family, which is why it puzzles me to no end that with him applying this much personal pressure and having so much skin in the game that he was not able to obtain where her remains are. Where's the rest of her?
Yeah, that is shocking. Hopefully he'll address that soon, and maybe the family already knows that reason.
You know what? Maybe it's possible because, things have just, the reason we're updating this case now is because there's been a sentencing, which was, like a week or so ago. So it's very, very fresh. Maybe there's something more here. So this is indeed a very rare move. This is a case without a body, so really, really hard to prosecute. But there was some decent evidence here. And the most important being the DNA, her blood in the car. There's no explanation for it. And the amount, it's not like it was a tiny bit. At trial, prosecutors did not seek the death penalty, which really in California wouldn't matter because it's stayed. So it's just for, I don't know what, it's For show, right? For show, for show. The jury took over a day, which is actually kind of long. You think so?
That was pretty quick.
Really?
That was pretty quick. It's a murder trial, right? And
that's true. That's true. I've just been watching you know what it is? I've been watching all these murder trials in Florida for True Crime News, the show. And like those verdicts are coming in a few hours late on a Friday night. Because the thing about Florida that fascinates me, if it's not a murder one case, all you need is 6 jurors to try a case. 6 people.
Yeah, how about that?
How about that?
Wow. Yeah.
Yes. Moving right along there with Florida. Okay, so back to California and what happened here. So the jury took a day to convict Owen of murder with special circumstances. He was found guilty August 21st of 2024. It was a 6-day trial. Meanwhile, Owen's brother Gary has accepted that plea deal for accessory after the fact. According to the Press Enterprise, family members were present at Owen's sentencing, which was just almost 2 weeks ago, October 25th of 2024, and they shared their memories of Aranda. Her brother said she was a bright soul. Owen refused to speak at sentencing, and he sat there stone-faced. This was his chance to say something, ask for mercy, apologize, do something, man. Do something. And he didn't.
He did say something a little later on that same day, Anna, when he was speaking to his grandfather on a jail phone, a recorded call, and he asked his father if he should get some type of award for being convicted for murder.
Are you kidding me?
This is the mentality of this idiot, this coward.
What is wrong with him?
We'll never know, other than he's a murderer. We're done.
Boy, the judge was right about calling him evil. So the judge, Timothy Hollenhorst, said there are many questions left unanswered. None more than where is Aranda? Mr. Shover, from what I can tell about you, it appears that you are not capable of feeling remorse, the judge went on to say. However, there is no question in this court's mind that you are the face of pure evil.
Absolutely.
Disgusting. Yeah. Disgusting, disgusting, disgusting. My hope is that part of justice here will be finding the rest of Aranda and reuniting her with her family. 16 years old. No, this is just, it's absurd. My hope is that's where it goes. I still am hopeful here. It is time for our comment section. Those are the crime cases that you're talking about on social media. And here's our producer, Will Updike. Hey, Will.
Hey, Anna, how's it going?
Good.
Hi,
How are you, Lewis?
How are you? Doing well, sir.
So for the viewers, I mean, you won't notice if you're just listening, but for the viewers, you might notice we look a little bit different. We actually recorded a version of this segment when we recorded the show on last Friday, but there has been a tragic update that we're going to talk about in which this squirrel that was seized has been euthanized. So this case comes out of Elmira, New York, where officials from the Department of Environmental Conservation have euthanized a squirrel and a raccoon after a seizure, which they claim came on the heels of complaints about unlawfully possessed animals. Now, the squirrel, who's kind of taking center stage in this whole thing, because, which we'll get into why in just a minute, but the squirrel named Peanut the squirrel was rescued 7 years ago after losing its mother in a car accident. And this squirrel, since it's been taken in by its owner, Mark Longo, has amassed a huge internet following, hundreds of thousands of followers, like over 500,000 on Instagram, more than 400,000 on Facebook. And this Peanut has over 2 million views on TikTok. I'll show a quick picture here of him with the little cowboy hat on. It's pretty easy to understand how a lot of people would be captivated by this animal. So let's get into this seizure here. Peanut's owner, as I said, Mark Longo, was super caught off guard by this. And, he worried right away that the animal might be euthanized. I don't know if they said anything about this during the search, but we'll get into how this kind of unfolded so quickly as well. Now, Mark claims that he thinks it was someone in the larger online community that sort of brought these concerns to authorities. And after Fred was seized, he actually shared a statement on Instagram, which I'm going to just read to you now. He said, "Well, internet, you won. You took one of the most amazing animals away from me because of your selfishness. To the group of people who call DEC, there's a special place in hell for you." And as I said, he was, really worried immediately about this euthanasia, and he should have been. The squirrel was put down pretty shortly thereafter. Now, Mark here, the owner, and Peanut, as well as Fred the raccoon, who isn't going to be talked about as much, but is part of this whole thing, were relatively new to this Elmira area. They had relocated there to actually start an animal sanctuary named Peanut's Freedom Farm, where they were going to try to rehab other animals, maybe do a similar kind of thing, use this social media presence for some sort of good. And for those of you who watch this segment or follow this show or are just interested in pet seizures in general, you may have heard of another case in New York where Albert the alligator was seized from his home. Now, these two cases are a little bit different. The Albert case, which we'll discuss more here in a sec, but he was a legally obtained and licensed animal in good standing for a long amount of time before this seizure of the alligator happened. Now, in Peanut's case, unfortunately, Peanut, from what I can read, had not yet been licensed. Now, Mark was working to obtain a license for Peanut as a certified education animal, but it doesn't appear like that permit is in place at the time of the seizure. So I don't know what the delays are on that. It doesn't appear if you have any sort of grace period, like when you move into a new, if you move into a new state or jurisdiction with what is considered like a wild animal type pet. But I want to talk about the timeline of this whole thing because Anna, you texted me over the weekend, and this whole thing kind of fell apart. So we first this seizure happened at Mark's home on Wednesday, October 30th, day before Halloween, and by November 1st, we were receiving reports.
By Friday, he was dead.
That the animal had been euthanized. So
yes.
A lot of people, myself included, you included, Lewis included, were wondering like how this happened so quickly. And now, according to DEC, they claim a person involved in the investigation and seizure was bitten by Peanut. So both animals, Peanut the squirrel, Fred the raccoon, were put down in order to test for rabies. Unfortunately, that is like the only way they can test for rabies. Like the animal has to be dead. I still don't know how we haven't advanced that since where the red fern grows, but I'm hoping that they figure that one out eventually.
There's a lot, Will, here that, it isn't adding up. Look, no one here is defending that if the law says you cannot have a wild animal, no one is defending the illegal possession of a wild animal.
Yeah.
However, Lewis and I have been talking all weekend. What doesn't make sense to us is, a search warrant. Mark Longo says there were 10 to 12 officers that were in his house for 5 hours searching the house. He claims that 4 departments and a judge signed off on a search warrant. So, is that literally overkill for the illegal possession of wildlife?
Well, and it's similar to what the claim was with Albert the alligator. The owner said that like DEC descended upon the home like it was like he was like a drug lord, like it was like a drug seizure. And I do want to point out a thing. This is just a side note. It's been reported on other things. There are some conspiracy theories about this search involving some of Mark Longo's other income. He and his wife do have a popular OnlyFans. Which they reportedly made about $800,000 with last year, part of which was used to start the animal sanctuary. So some people are claiming that it could have had something to do with that. I don't really buy that. I don't know why DEC would get involved in that whole thing, but that could have also been like motivation for some of these people's complaints about him as the owner of the squirrel and the owner of this quote unquote wild animal.
Even if that was true, Will, it doesn't justify law enforcement's actions in this. If they're going to use that as a shield to justify what they did, who knows, that'll come out later as this investigation continues because it caught so many eyes. But what gets lost in the whole scope here is what happened when they served a search warrant on that door. Is day one in law enforcement and in law school, you're taught two things about law. You're taught about the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. Two different things. And a lot of times they conflict with each other. In this case, the letter of law may say the animal's not supposed to be there. But the spirit of the law is let's do what's best for the animal and for everybody involved. The optics of this are ridiculous. And look, a search warrant is never something you should take lightly as a law enforcement officer because they're dangerous. So I get, okay, overkill with the officers showing up. Maybe there may be other factors that'll come into play, but the bottom line is they justified euthanizing that animal because it bit one of their investigators, which is just ridiculous. And, my whole life growing up, I've heard about, and I sent Anna some of the research I was doing about squirrels, possibly having rabies. Be careful, it has rabies. It might have rabies. Well, the research I've done over the weekend, as this thing continues to grow, shows that they're not ever in history. There's never been one documented case of a squirrel biting a human or animal and transmitting rabies. It's never happened.
Louis, here's something that I cannot figure out about this case. Where is the due process? If you are alleging that someone has an animal illegally, there are steps. If that's a crime, there are steps. You get charged. Maybe the animal gets confiscated. There is a hearing, but everything happened all at once, and there hasn't been one hearing on this.
Right. What was the urgency to expedite this? And again, back to the spirit of the law, they have an opportunity here to do something very positive. I mean, you think step one would be, we have contacts, we have people that this animal can go to while we help you get your license. You're in the middle of getting it, or even if he hadn't started the process, he claims it's a 2-month process, more or less. There would have been, I think, hundreds, if not thousands of places that were justified and certified who would have been willing to take Peanut in the meantime, until he got certified. What happened to that? Let's just be good humans, for starters.
And why kill the raccoon? Because the raccoon didn't bite anyone. So why is Fred dead? Like,
he was an accessory, probably. They probably just over
an accessory to the biting. I don't. Where is the hearing? Where is the due process? Where is the innocent until proven guilty? Again, this is the part that I'm really upset about. You go in, you confiscate, you euthanize. Hello. What happened to the law here? And you know what everyone's talking about on social media? Everyone's saying the same thing. It's like, wow, we got so many problems with crime everywhere in this country. And these agents, a dozen agents are given to deal with, they're focused on the squirrel and the raccoon when the rest of us would like, some similar attention paid to our crimes. My car was broken into a few months ago. You think anybody's done anything about that? No, I've got video of them. You could see their faces. They took all my stuff, but it's like, hello, I would like some justice too. And that's what I think the discussion is about.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what we talk about all the time here. Like, what is justice and the application of justice? And interestingly enough, like, this has caused a big enough stir that there are even people involved with the law who are upset by this. New York State Assemblyman Jake Blumenkrantz tweeted about the incident. He called it a tragedy and said, as a state lawmaker and an animal rights advocate, this tragedy can be an agent of change. He is introducing a proposal for a new measure to mitigate these types of seizure situations entitled Peanuts Law, the Humane Animal Protection Act. And basically what would happen with this is the measure would mandate a 72-hour waiting period before an animal from a sanctuary can be put to sleep. And it creates an appeal system, which I think is even bigger here, while giving animal refuge sites the right to humane due process. So I think that's kind of like what we're all looking for here. I don't know what the future of this bill would be, but I mean, a 72-hour waiting period before an animal can be put to sleep kind of feels like at least a bare minimum, right? Like, especially if there's no hearing or anything, like, to be able to like seize an animal and like immediately euthanize it. Like, I think it's one thing if there was like clear and present danger or someone like was seriously injured. Maybe even if the animal. Maybe even if the animal is showing clear signs of rabies, but even that, it's kind of like, shouldn't there be some sort of monitoring period? Like, shouldn't someone else oversee this? Like, shouldn't there just be one other set of eyes at the very least, like kind of looking this whole thing over?
No one is condoning, right? If the law says you cannot have a wild animal, no one is condoning the
illegal possession of an animal here. We're having a discussion about the entirety of it and the humanity of it. And even Mark Longo said, look, I haven't been trying to hide that I've had Peanut this whole time. I mean, I am open about it.
This just seems like there's another motivator here for what happened to Peanut. It can't just be what they're telling us, that this was a wild animal. And that's the reason we euthanized this animal. Mark Longo claims that half a dozen officers came there, and none of them were wearing body cameras. None of them. And I've seen that in some other of the media outlets in their reporting. If that is true, then not one of them was wearing body cameras. I call complete BS on that, because every time I see when officers do not wear body cameras on a search warrant specifically, that's intentional. So I want to know if they had them issued to them, or if this is the first time out of all the search warrants they've served, the DEC, that they weren't wearing them. For one or two, not to have one that's operating correctly, or they should have gone out of the way to make sure they had a camera. That's really fishy to me. Longo also claims that they were there for 5 hours searching his house for Peanut. And that's probably because, Mark put him someplace else. He wouldn't hand him over. So, I mean, that translates.
Or they're looking for something else. I mean, again.
Well, but it could be. But the warrant, that's why we want to see the warrant. The warrant is going to be specific to just Peanut. And there's been no indication that warrant was for anything else.
Why would DEC be involved? You know what I mean? Like, if they had a criminal search warrant, why wouldn't they just wouldn't that be wouldn't that take priority over a DEC raid?
Yes, you would think. So we'll see. Hopefully that warrant becomes more available and we can read it. But I think there's a lot more that can happen with this. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I really think there has to be an independent investigation into the process for this.
And everyone's got an opinion on it. I can't wait to hear everyone's opinion on this. What do you think? What do you think happened? It just doesn't feel right. There's something about this that isn't setting right. And I think that's why it's upsetting people. It feels very, very drastic, and no one wants to be injured. I also, want to make sure we make clear here. No one is suggesting that if an animal control officer was in any way bitten or injured, that is not serious. We take that and the health and safety of officers very, very seriously. What we're questioning here is the lack of transparency. Something's not adding up here. We're talking about a squirrel.
And a raccoon.
Fred.
Let's not lose Fred in the shuffle. But yeah, we're excited to hear all your thoughts on this. Not going to do kind of our regular comment section with the passing of an animal. It's not the time for puns, unfortunately. But we do really want to know, what do you think of this? We're curious to hear all your thoughts. This was a significant enough update, like I said, that we had to address it. So yeah, thank you to everyone who did leave their comments over on our YouTube community page. You can also reach out to us anytime. We're across all social media channels at My True Crime News. But that will do it for this week's comment section. And until next time, don't do crime.
All right, Lewis, I know you've been super busy. You're working a lot of cases that we do talk about every once in a while, but where can people follow you on social media? Because sometimes you'll post things when you write one of your letters to either the prosecutors or the police chief, you post them in your full transparency on the case that you're working on.
And we get results. They actually start a communication, which is all we want.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anna. My entire social media footprint is at getbitinvestigations.com.
Excellent. You can find me at Anna G News, Anna with one N. And on TikTok, it's the same except with a Z at the end instead of S. It's a complicated, long story that Anna screwed up when she was making her account. But it is what it is. You can find everything that we do at True Crime News, which is, of course, the podcast, which is on YouTube. We've also got a television show. So you could just find everything at My True Crime News. And if you want to know when the TV show airs, because it's every day, a half hour every day, True Crime News, different time and different station in each city, just go to our website at truecrimenews.com. And we've got a little map finder of where we're on and how to find us. And then we will post some of the videos afterwards on YouTube and share. So this podcast And every other episode of our podcast is available wherever and how you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, sign up for our newsletter at truecrimenews.com. And until next time, this is True Crime News, the podcast. I'm your host, Ana Garcia. See you next time, everyone.